What's up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. Now, in today's video, what is going to be reacting to a brand new video by Banana. So
5 motherfucking people in here and I got to do it. We want
5 unexplained, unsolved mysteries of Titanic. The terrible tragedy of the Titanic, even though it is possible to hope that fuller information may mitigate it, presents several mysteries. How could this great ship, the largest and finest afloat, supposed to represent the highest achievement in the shipbuilding art, with her watertight compartments, collision bulkheads, double bottoms, twin or triple screws? How could she have fallen so easy a victim to a collision with an iceberg? We at Smart is the New Sexy collected 5 mysteries that will baffle you for sure. Stay with us, because the last mystery is going to send chills down your spine. Number 5. Olympic, not Titanic. Over the years, people have spoken about Titanic and learned how it sank on that dreadful night in April 1912. However, some people tend to believe that it was in fact its sister ship, the Olympic, that sank as part of an insurance scam. The reason behind people thinking that the ship is not Titanic takes us back to September 20th, 1911, when the Olympic collided with the HMS Hawk just off the coast of the Isle of Wight. This incident caused many problems for the ship's owners, as this meant that it would have had to be taken out of service while they would be repairing it, and that the maiden voyage of Titanic had to be put back from the 20th March to the 10th April. This, at the time, was something that White Star Line could not afford to do, as they had legal bills to pay, and the cost of repairing the Olympic as well. This meant that they had to come up with a way to claim back not only the money that they would have missed due to Olympic not being in service, but also the money they couldn't claim back from the incident. So, they came up with a plan. The plan was simple. Switch Olympic with her sister ship Titanic and sink it to claim compensation. No one would know they had swapped the ships except the people in charge. J. Bruce Ismay, Lord Pyrie, Thomas Andrews, and J.P. Morgan. If you looked at the ships when they were standing beside each other, you would not know which one was which unless you looked at the nameplates on both ships. However, there is one thing that allows people to tell the difference between the two ships, and it is the portholes on the sea deck. When the Titanic was pictured while being built, it had 14 evenly spaced portholes, but when it left Southampton on doomed maiden voyage on April 10, 1912, it had 16 unevenly spaced portholes. The Mystery Ship. Many people that were standing on the sloping decks of the Titanic looking around for anything that could help them. When they looked at the horizon, they saw a light that could only come from another ship. While survivors testified that it was the Californian that was ignoring rockets, the officers that were on duty that night claimed that there was indeed another ship that was between the two ships. Who was this mystery ship? There are many theories about who this mystery ship was, and the name that has come up more than once is a Norwegian sailing ship called the Samson. Supposedly, the Samson was in the area, hunting seals that called the bigger icebergs their home, which is considered poaching and illegal. When the Titanic started going down, the orders were given for rockets to be shot off to get the attention of the ship on the horizon so they could render aid. The legend says that when the crew of the Samson realized that the Titanic was so close and firing rockets, they thought they were going to get caught and decided to leave the area before it was discovered exactly what they were doing. Even Captain Stanley Lord, who is the captain of the Californian, claimed that there was another ship in the area, and the rockets he saw might have been Titanic trying to contact that other ship, or they were just talking to one another via rockets and Morse lamps. Number 3. Titanic's insurance was increased 5 days before sailing. This story goes together with the story about Olympic. However, there are still big differences between them. If two different stories have some resemblance and involve the same people, doesn't it prove that there is something real in them? So, here it goes. Titanic's insurance was increased 5 days before the maiden voyage, which resulted in JP Morgan receiving $12.5 million for her in insurance payouts from Lloyd's Maritime Insurance. Estimated at over $160 million today, more than they could ever have recovered if they had sold or scrapped her. The switch theory primarily rests on the sinking being a deliberate act to recover insurance money, to rescue the White Star Line from bankruptcy. It has been alleged that Titanic's insurance was increased by JP Morgan from $5 million to $12.5 million 5 days before her fateful journey. Some go as far as to state that Lloyd's paid out $12,500,000. Number 2. Did a German U-boat sink the Titanic? When the sunken Titanic was discovered in 1985, its starboard, right side was embedded in sand. This was the side that had struck the iceberg off a Newfoundland 100 years ago on April 14, 1912. So-called sub-profiler digital images revealed that 6 rivets has popped off, suggesting that shoddy workmanship led to the ship's demise. But this covered only a relatively small area of just 12 square feet. Hardly enough to cause the huge luxury liner to sink with such rapidity. Significantly, several survivors, including passengers and crew members, when questioned by a U.S. Senate inquiry panel, testified that they never felt any impact or heard any sound when the collision occurred, suggesting it was minor in nature. However, they reported having heard 4 reports or explosions deep in the bowels of the Titanic after it had scraped the iceberg. These could conceivably have been torpedoes launched by a German submarine. Moreover, a number of survivors huddled in lifeboats observed a searchlight in the distance, encouraging them that a rescue vessel was approaching. Most assuredly, that mystery craft could well have been a German sub, as their U-boat technology was highly perfected by that time, and their subs were scanning the North Atlantic then. The sub may have deliberately targeted the luxury liner, or possibly accidentally collided with it. Number 1. Cursed mummy on the Titanic. Of all tales of the supernatural, this one is perhaps the best documented, the most disturbing, and the most difficult to explain. The princess of Amun-Ra lived some 1,500 years before Christ. When she died, she was laid in an ornate wooden coffin and buried deep in a vault at Luxor on the banks of the Nile. In the late 1890s, a rich, young Englishman visiting the archaeological digs near Luxor purchased the coffin and the mummy. He arranged for it to be shipped back to his home, but was not there to receive it. He disappeared, never to be found. One of his companions on the trip later died, another lost an arm in an accident, and the third lost his fortune in a bank failure. The coffin reached England and was purchased by a businessman. 3 members of the businessman's household were injured in an auto accident, and his house was caught on fire. Convinced that the mummy was unlucky, the man donated it to the British Museum. The staff at the museum reported hearing loud banging and crying noises coming from the coffin at night. Things were thrown around the exhibit room without explanations. Finally, a watchman died. Then, a photographer took a photo of the coffin. When he developed it, the image that appeared was so horrifying that the photographer killed himself. The museum wanted to get rid of the unlucky mummy, but with its reputation, they could not even give it away. Finally, an American archaeologist who didn't believe in the stories purchased the mummy and coffin. On the night of April 14, amid scenes of unprecedented horror, the princess of Amun-Ra accompanied 1,500 passengers to their deaths at the bottom of the Atlantic. The name of the ship was, of course, the Titanic. Are these true stories, or just weird tales? Will the Titanic ever be resurrected to assess the destruction and finally find answers to all these questions? We would be glad to read your opinion in the comments section below the video. Remember.
Okay guys, that's the end of the video. See you all in the next one.